Okay, this is Gretchen. Very good. Thank you, everybody, for waiting. Krista, would you like to facilitate in Angelo's absence?
Well, I don't know, honestly, if you wouldn't mind, because I'm having tech issues, Gretchen, would you be okay with leading this? Because I got to figure out what's going on here.
Sorry about that, everybody. Just a minute. Boy, we're having technical problems.
Well, I don't know, honestly, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, yes, I'd be happy to. Sorry about that interference. And let's see, welcome everybody to the commission. And we apologize for the slow start and getting us going. As you know, we broadcast live on YouTube, and I'm facilitating while we're waiting for Angelo to arrive, our chair. We begin with introductions, and the way we do introductions at the Human Rights Commission is what they call popcorn style. So I'll introduce myself, and please include your pronouns. And then when you're done introducing yourself, if you could ask the next person, so call on someone by name to introduce themselves. So I'm Gretchen, I am staff to the commission, and I will call on David.
Hello, my name is David Reinhold. I'm a resident of Polk County, and my pronouns are he and him, and I will call on Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Waters. I'm a resident of Ward 7, and my pronouns are they and them, and I will call on Kelsey.
Hi, everyone. This is Kelsey. I use she, her pronouns, and I am going to call on Tricarico.
Hi, I'm Tricarico. I'm a resident of Ward 2, and also for the interpreters, my name sign is T Italy, so you don't have to spell that every time. T in the shape of Italy. Yeah, there you go. I will pass it to Kathy.
Hi, my name is Kathy Ostran-Ponchen. I'm a resident of South Salem. My pronouns are she, her, and I will pass it to Krista.
Hi, I'm Krista Gallagher, and I use the pronoun she, her. I'm from Ward 4, and I'm going to pick Debbie.
Good evening, I'm Debbie. I'm Aguilar, Lieutenant with Salem Police, and I'm the liaison between the Police Department and the Human Rights Commission. And my pronouns are she, her. And I think the last one to go is Patricia.
Good evening, Patricia Farrell. I'm the Climate Action Plan Manager and also the Parks and Natural Resources Manager. I go by she, her, and I'm here tonight to talk about the Climate Action Plan. Gretchen.
Very good. Welcome. Good to see everybody. Let's see. We did receive one public comment, which was included in the email. It was from Mr. Lee Coyne, and he was discussing the experience of the siting conversations in West Salem related to the potential Wallace location. I'm not aware of any other public comments unless anyone's here tonight to share. Very good. Are there any discussions or questions on Mr. Coyne's public comment?
Yeah, this is Tricarico. Gretchen, do we have a standard response when people submit comments in this format? Because usually when someone comes, we address it, and I think it would be nice to at least like acknowledge that we received that, or if that's something you've already done in your process.
I did. Thank you for asking. I was sure to write them back and acknowledge it, let them know I'd bring it forward at this next meeting, and appreciated that. And we had a little bit of conversation about the topic too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for confirming. Let's see, I think the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which consists of approving the agenda as well as the meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
This is Kelsey. So moved.
Thank you, Kelsey. Is there a second?
This is David. I'll second.
David, thank you. Is there any discussion or questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent calendar is approved unanimously. Thank you. And I'm seeing our chair is arriving. Angelo, would you like to introduce yourself, or should I go ahead and welcome Patricia, which is next on our agenda?
Yeah, hello. I'm still getting things figured out. My computer's kind of glitching right now, so go ahead and introduce while I do it.
Very good. Welcome, Angelo. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Patricia Farrell, who, as you know, is our Climate Action Plan Manager, as well as her other role with the Public Works Department, who's going to bring you up to speed on the planning and the objectives around climate action. So I know Patricia will have some remarks and be open to your questions as well. Patricia, take it away, and thanks for being here with the commission tonight.
I need to unmute myself first. All right, so it is kind of a glitchy night with computers, so hopefully you can see my screen.
I
you see
can.
my screen? Okay, excellent. That's a good start. I'm also happy to see that David is here. He's on our task force. So tonight I'm here to talk to you about the Salem Climate Action Plan. This plan has been about a 15, maybe on 16-month process. So it began last year. It actually, working on climate began several years ago. In 2019, the city did an inventory, a greenhouse gas inventory. And this shows the results of that inventory. It's looking at where do our greenhouse gas emissions come from within the city. And so you can see from this graphic that the majority of them come from transportation. And I'll just say that it comes from the burning of fossil fuels, where our carbon dioxide comes from. So the majority of it comes from transportation. So that's cars, vehicles, buses that are burning fuel. And then the next sector is electricity. This data is a little bit out of date now because electricity probably has a lower impact now because PGE has closed their coal-fired power plant just recently. But this is from 2016 data. So that's what that is showing. And then stationary combustion is generally natural gas. So that's coming from, burning for furnaces or appliances, or actually Chariots, I think, uses some natural gas as well in their buses. So that's that piece of the puzzle. And then wastewater produces some methane, and so does waste disposal. So landfills also produces methane. And so those are the sources that we're looking at for Salem. So as we began this process, the city council set these two goals. And the first one is to reduce our emissions from those levels that I just showed you, 50% by 2035. And the second goal is to become carbon neutral by 2050. So that's essentially means no greenhouse gas emissions, or anything that's left has to be through offsets, which is generally purchased offsets. So what is the plan? So the plan is to look at how do we get to those goals. So it's looking at how do we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and that's what's called mitigation. And then there's another piece of it, which is looking at resilience, which is how do we prepare the city, our citizens, our residents for dealing with the effects of climate change that we're already feeling or that we will be experiencing in the future. And so there's a lot of actions that might not necessarily have much impact on greenhouse gas reduction, but will have a lot of impact on building a more resilient city. And then we also have actions prioritized for where do we start, because we have a lot of different actions. We have over 180 actions and we have to start somewhere. So where do we start? And so that's part of what the plan is looking at. And then also in the plan is we're looking at our key partners, because a lot of the actions are not even under the purview of the city necessarily. They might rely on ODOT, or they might rely on Chariots for transportation, or some of the companies, nonprofits that are already doing a lot of work in the city. So we're kind of trying to identify those key partnerships. One of the first tasks was to establish a task force. And as you can see from the list, it's quite a large task force because one of the key things we wanted to do was to try to have representatives from different portions of our community, maybe some of the ones that aren't typically on city task forces. So you can see from the list on the area of expertise on this side. So we have low income, we have people who are living with disabilities, we have the Latinx, we also have the typical groups of like Chamber of Commerce, for instance, but we also have public health. So you can just look at this long list. I think, David, you're representing insurance maybe on this task force as that, because insurance is definitely one of the factors that as climate change impacts us, that can affect our insurance.
Right.
So you can see it's a large group, and we've been meeting all on Zoom because COVID started right as we started this process. It seems like it's been working fairly well. We've had a number of different workshops. Everything's been live streamed and is on the website for people to look at later if they missed or are interested in actually watching it. One of the other things we did early on was to assess the vulnerability of Salem to specific climate change factors. And so this list shows where we are vulnerable. And one of the key things in the plan is to make sure that we're looking at things with equity in mind, because the impacts are not felt equally. People who have to work outside or who don't have air conditioning or don't have air filters or live in houses or places that don't have good insulation, for instance. I mean, a lot of factors affect people differently. And people who live in are living under poverty conditions or living outside, for instance, obviously are affected much more severely than other people. So we're trying to make sure that anything that we do, we assess, like make sure we don't have unintended consequences for people. So as far as the vulnerability, we have these two different factors as far as the water. We have too much water and we have too little water. And so these are things that we're going to be experiencing. I think, tonight there's supposed to be some atmospheric river coming in to our area that can cause flooding. And we're also going to experience flooding and maybe in areas that we didn't normally see it before. It might be more intense downfalls in different times of year. So you can see that obviously flooding is going to affect transportation and infrastructure. If it gets in your house, it can cause mold. So there's public health risks to all of these as well. And then drought, all summer, we've been under drought conditions. The entire state has been at one level of drought or another. And that can affect water quality and water quantity. Fortunately, this year we didn't have an algal bloom, but sometimes when you have low water years, it can heat the water up and there can be more of a chance of that. Wildfire, obviously, we're very aware of that after the last couple of summers. The number of days of high fire danger are going to increase. And along with drought and high temperatures, obviously our wildfire potential is going to increase as well. And as we know from this picture, this is from last summer, from 2020, when the wind is blowing our way, it doesn't necessarily need to be a fire in Salem for us to be impacted by it. Same thing with warming temperatures. We were experiencing those. We had that heat dome this summer. What's called excessive heat is anything over 90 degrees. We had probably, I think, almost 30 days of over 90 this last summer, and several of those were over 100. I mean, people died during that heat dome because they didn't have air conditioning and they didn't have a place to go. The other thing is called urban heat island effect. And so this is where the heat builds up in a city. And so because of the buildings and the impervious surfaces, the heat is retained and kind of absorbed, and then it's released back out at night. And so it doesn't cool off at night. And that can build up over time in a city. And that's also an equity issue because, as you'll see by this map, anything that's in the yellow or orange or red categories is higher than what is kind of the normal temperature out in the outside rural areas. This is so you can see everything's pretty much a little bit warmer, if not much warmer. So like this is the airport. So there's no trees there. there's, a lot of impervious surfaces. So that's an example of, that's how, how much warmer it is there. But you can also see in areas of Northeast Salem where there's low tree canopy and more impervious, more industrial perhaps, or more commercial developments, that you also get a buildup of that heat. Whereas in this area, which is probably more affluent, if you were to look at the economic aspect, there's also more trees. So tree canopy is an equity issue as well and can help offset some of these impacts. So as we worked with the task force and also with the public, we got a lot of different ideas for how to reach our goals and how to be a resilient city. And they broke out into these 7 categories. So the majority of them, as far as greenhouse gas reduction, are in this transportation and energy, those 2 categories. But the other ones also have a lot of ideas, and they're more focused on the resilient city side of the equation. So these are just some examples of kind of some of the ideas, kind of the overarching ideas in those categories. So obviously, one of the big things is for transportation, because that's one of our major sources, is to look at how can we either reduce our vehicle miles traveled by being more efficient, taking public transportation, improving our public transportation network, and then maybe also trying to, excuse me, trying to switch over to electric vehicles as much as possible. So I know that Chariots is actually just tweeted, I think, that they're getting 10 new electric buses. So that's really exciting news. And, not everybody can afford electric vehicles. I mean, they're definitely on the high side of the purchase price. But as time goes by, maybe they'll become cheaper as more and more people use them. And also like increasing our ability to charge them at multifamily places and downtown, places where people go, the library. Obviously, we have one spot, but can we increase those? And then just some of the other ideas about energy is a lot of it is focused on trying to have more solar access, have energy efficient buildings. So either energy upgrades or making sure that that things are built efficiently and weatherized appropriately when they're built. And probably one of the more controversial ideas is related to natural gas and reducing our reliance on natural gas. And so I know that that's a big topic of controversy right now, but basically, if we want to get to net zero 2050 goal, that has to be kind of on the table for discussion. And so
Patricia? Hi, I'm sorry, because there's screen sharing happening, the other interpreter and I can't see each other. Would you just let me give her a break? Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm good.
Okay. So we have, in addition to the strategies, we looked at these other aspects. So for each strategy that we have, we looked at what we call co-benefits. And so this shows the co-benefits. So for instance, if we're weatherizing, if we're improving weatherization in homes, and there's incentives for that, for instance, then that's an equity issue, because then people can access that opportunity and have incentives that can help them pay for that. And that might also be something related to public health as well. For instance, if they could get, a heat pump that also has air conditioning, then that helps with those hot days. So there's a number of kind of cross benefits that happen with a lot of these strategies. And so we tried to capture those just with kind of a really rough look at, okay, we think this would benefit public health or any of these other opportunities. So under each strategy, you'll see, if you look at the list, what is the potential for that strategy to, let me go here. So this is kind of what our strategy table looks like right now. So this is the community bucket of ideas. So each bucket has a vision and equity principles, and then there's a code for each one. And then we look at each one for the co-benefits, as I mentioned, but also who's the lead agency. It's not always the city. What is the cost, kind of just really rough cost of what this would cost the city? And what is the potential that this strategy would have on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions? So some of them, as I mentioned, have low greenhouse gas potential, but have other benefits for the city as a whole and in reacting to climate change. And then we also tried to assign a rough timeline. Is this something we could start in the first 2 years? Is this something that should maybe be a little bit farther out because it's more complicated or not as critical? So we tried to look at some ways to kind of sort through some of these multitude of ideas. So for community, I thought maybe this might be of interest to this commission. The main objectives are shown here. And then underneath each objective, there's several strategies. So a lot of it, I'm sure, is work that Gretchen, you're already working on, and the commission is already working on, about making sure that there's more opportunities for people to be engaged in the city's decision-making and in planning processes, and to continue to make sure that people are part of the solution, and that it's not a one, so that when we come up with ideas and when we start implementing it, that neighborhoods and that individuals can engage and find things that work for them. And this is really a rough cut of a lot of the strategies are going to need to be drilled down to much more to see like what are the impacts and the benefits, and engage people in that process. And like I said before, we want to make sure that when we have something, that it doesn't disproportionately affect people who are least able to deal with the cost, and we don't want to create something where we're having gentrification and displacement as well. So we're trying to keep an eye on those issues. Where we are now, so we've had several workshops, the last one just in the end of October, and we're still kind of doing outreach. We have public comments still open on the plan. And then we are going to go to City Council, possibly December 6th, although that's still being determined right now. It might go a little bit later in the beginning of next year, depending on what else is on the agenda that night. I know there's a lot of things piling up in December, but we are hoping to get that in front of the council soon. But there still is opportunity to comment. A final draft plan is going to be posted on November 19th on our website. And the website is, the location is shown here on the bottom. If you go there, you'll be able to find the latest strategies. If you go there on the 19th or the day after, so you should be able to find the latest draft. And we've been incorporating some of the feedback we've received already. And then after that, it will be going to City Council. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing, and so I can see people again, and see if there's any questions. I know that was a lot of material and I talked probably too fast.
Hi, this is Tricarico. Is there anything in the plan about businesses in the city of Salem, particularly large corporations? Because I'm sure you're well aware, if you're involved in climate action, that about 70% of the major concerning issues with climate action come from about 100 major corporations. So while, pushing consumers to make better choices is great, that only accounts for 30% of the actual impacts we see. So are there plans by the city to hold large corporations accountable if they try to come into Salem, or if they're already in Salem, to be in alignment with your climate action plan?
That's a good question. So, a lot is going on at the state level related to large employers and transportation in particular. So I'm thinking about, if you're over 100 employees, there's going to be things coming from the state about transportation options and trying to get people to either to carpool or to use public transportation or to work from home. There's those kinds of things. As far as and then there's also new building requirements that are going to be coming into effect as well. And so of course the city will be following those because several bills passed related to solar access and charging stations and multifamily and getting businesses on board with having their buildings also be weatherized. So we're kind of piggybacking on what the state is doing as far as building codes and things like that. As far as specifically for the city, I think probably, as I mentioned, the natural gas one is one that is kind of specific to the city, which would be to try to get companies that are either using natural gas to switch to electric through some sort of incentive program, or to, I think the proposal is right now to look at having new construction be all electric. Now that does not necessarily work for a lot of businesses, perhaps. A lot of the food processing businesses use natural gas now. So switching off of that is concerning to them. So I think that's probably the most unique one to Salem, but a lot of the other ones are based on what the state is doing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I don't see any other questions. David, did you want to add anything about your experience on the task force? Not to put you on the spot, but.
No, I think there's, well, I was kind of, let's put it this way. I was impressed by the amount of people that were involved and the thought process that went into it, and the diversity of the group, from the different backgrounds that everyone had, from people that really know a lot about this to myself that knows very little about it. It was quite interesting.
Good, great. Thank you for the feedback.
There was one meeting I went to, we talked about the impact that I-5 has going through Salem. And I think, if I remember right, that was quite a large impact, isn't it?
It is, but it's not included in our inventory. You know, it's not, because it's a pass through. It's not counted as one of the things that is our emissions per se from Salem, but it is a big impact on Salem, you know.
Right.
And we're hoping that the state, through their climate action management that they're doing, they're definitely looking at heavy freight and, you know, reducing diesel fumes. But, you know, that's also an equity issue too in Salem, because a lot of times that goes right through the kind of the heart of the area where there's a lot more multifamily housing and things. So the state is looking into that, and we're keeping a close eye on that. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Please go to the website if you're interested in learning more and look at the strategies. It's a little bit overwhelming, I'm sure, but hopefully you can find some area of interest and send a comment in or two if you're so inclined.
Thank you so much for your time with us this evening, Patricia. We're glad you were able to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Patricia.
Angela, would you like to take it from here?
Hello, can you repeat that? You were cutting out there for a second, Gretchen.
Oh, just passing the baton to you if you'd like it.
All right, hello, good afternoon, good night, whatever time it is. Again, thank you to our guest, Patricia, for joining us. That was a very informative presentation. So I guess we can move on to our Safe Spaces project. And is that Mike, Gretchen?
Mike, what do you think? Are you up for that? We have included a couple of attachments in the email.
Yeah, I sure am. So we've been talking about this project for a number of months at LGBTQIA+ intersectional task force. And really, it's the idea is born out of a lot of, this is a common practice on like college campuses to designate safe spaces. And some cities have also adopted safe spaces project. Most notably, Seattle has a project around safe spaces where they post decals in business windows, and the individuals in those businesses are given information about how to report hate crimes. When we started talking about it for Salem, though, we wanted to kind of go a little deeper than just informing people about how to report a hate crime. We wanted to educate businesses about what it kind of really takes to be a safe space, to be a space that sort of honors the different identities in our community, and where people can go not only to get help, but just to feel valued and respected and honored. So we put together, with the help of city staff, a proposal, and city staff has also put together a proposed timeline for working on a project like this. And that all is in your packet, so I won't repeat everything that's in there, but essentially the idea was that we wanted to launch this out of the Human Rights Commission and have it be city sponsored. But ultimately, the participants would be the businesses and organizations across Salem that are interested in doing this kind of work to make our city safer. Did I address the major points, Gretchen?
Yes, thank you so much. So I imagine what you're looking for tonight from the commission is feedback, and then if they're prepared, an approval to move forward. Would there be, oh, Angelo, go ahead.
Yeah, Angela here. I was going to say, Mike, do you want the feedback right now, or do you have something else? Or I'm guessing it's fine right now.
Yeah, I think this is the time when you can provide feedback, but there will be, I'm sure, other points in the program development where the commission can provide feedback on the specific materials. I think for tonight, it's any feedback you have on the overall plan, and then we'd look to see if we could move forward with the plan.
Yeah, Angela here. Yeah, I looked at the timeline and all the other document, and it looks great. No complaints. I think the only thing on my mind, it's always money, because I know we're gonna purchase decals. So is that gonna come from the city? You know, how are we gonna plan on doing that?
I could jump in on that. The cost is still to be determined. I think we're still wanting to determine a well, I'll let the commission speak, the members speak, but they had some very cool ideas about how to acquire the artwork for the decals. But assuming a reasonable budget cost, you know, a reasonable amount can come from the existing budget. But if it grows larger than what's in the budget, we may need to look for an appropriation. Certainly, we don't imagine the commission members themselves contributing to the project, unless of course you wanted to, you'd be welcome to. But yeah, we're imagining it being a city cost, and a reasonable amount can come from the typical budget. And then so it would just depend on how expensive it gets.
The only thing I would add is that we've had a couple of conversations with the commission that works with the parks, and I can't remember the name of that commission, but they visited LGBTQIA, and we talked about this a bit, and so there's desire among the committee for the city to also have some signage on city land that would probably be another cost. But again, that's something that I think is, as Gretchen said, is addressed, you know, as the program gets developed.
Angela here again. Oh, go ahead, David.
Oh, this is David. I just have a question. Could you give me a couple examples how this would work? I'm just trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, so let's say a coffee shop in downtown Salem elects to participate in the program because they want to signal to the community that they are a safe place. So that coffee shop, they would probably get a flyer or something from the HRC telling them about the program. That's probably how they would learn about it. And we would have a plan for launching it, so that people could hear about it. And once they read over the materials and said, yeah, we're interested in signing up, they'd be provided with a resource packet that would have a wide variety of information about the different communities in Salem. And it would also outline the expectations for them as a business for the program. Expectations like if they witness a hate crime, they should report it. If they have people from various communities in their establishment, those people should be treated respectfully, so they would agree to things like providing training for their staff around things like using correct pronouns or making accommodations around abilities, that kind of thing. So the businesses that would sign up for it would be voluntary, and they would agree to participate in the program and follow the tenets of the program. If there were ever a time where there was a complaint about a business that was participating in the program, we built some documentation to kind of start that conversation around what that would look like. But I think where we landed on that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Gretchen, was that it was sort of like an annual re-up or renewal for the businesses. And so if there was a business that for whatever reason we were getting complaints and they weren't complying with the program, there would be an opportunity for the business to, of course, the business can always elect not to participate, but then we could potentially ask the business not to participate if they weren't following the tenets of the program. So it's completely voluntary, but the idea is to sort of recognize those businesses that want to do the right thing when it comes to human rights and give them an opportunity to show visibly in their business through a decal sticker that they support human rights.
I think another aspect that we also wanted to bring to the table was the opportunity to support businesses who want to grow and do better, or even an existing business, say that coffee shop that Mike talked about had an incident that, left someone feeling traumatized or discriminated against. Maybe it wasn't quite to the level of hate crime or bias incident, but, left a customer or employee not feeling great. We have some resources that we've begun to gather, as well as ourselves as a resource to support that business through doing what is best for that person who is negatively impacted. Because I think a lot of times there are businesses and individuals who want to do the right thing, but don't necessarily know how or have the skills. And this program would be a way to engage with people to learn how to do that.
All right, thank you. That helps me a lot.
Any other questions or feedback or comments?
Yeah, Angela here. I know that at the start of this project, Mike, you talked about maybe hiring, a local artist to do the decal. Is that still something that you are planning on doing, or, what's that direction going to look like?
That's definitely something that the committee really liked as an idea for having a unique kind of decal, as well as supporting the community in doing it. I think it's one detail, I guess, of the of the program that would, need a little bit of fleshing out, but that was definitely something that the committee really liked.
Yeah, thank you. And I think my other question, let's see, would be if we approve this tonight, what's next? I know I'm seeing the timeline a little bit, but would it just be directed to city staff, or what would be next?
Yeah, as you can see from the timeline, city staff plays a really key role in the forward development of this. There are a couple of places where task force members are going to be asked to participate as well in launching it, but most of the next steps on this, and it looks like through really through the end of this year and into early next year, are city staff driven. Would you say that's correct, Gretchen?
Yeah, I think so. And easily I could welcome any member of the task force or the commission who wants to come alongside and join in that work, no doubt.
And Julie here. Yeah, thank you, Mike, for answering my questions. Does anybody else have any other questions, any discussion? If nobody has anything else, I think, wait, actually, Gretchen, do we have quorum to vote? I think a member left, so I'm not sure.
You're right. We do have quorum, so you would be able to vote. And
Okay.
You're right. Commissioner Drew Wright let us know that he's no longer able to serve. So you have 9 members and a quorum equals 5. And so you've got a quorum this evening.
Okay, so if there's no discussion, I think we can do a motion and then a second and vote. So do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, can I get a second?
I'm sorry, this is David.
This is Krista. I will second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? And aye here. Okay, no opposed. Motion passes, plan passes. All right, congratulations. I think this was a project that everybody was really working hard, especially the LGBTQIA Intersectional Rights Task Force. Mike and Tricarico, thank you for your hard work. And hopefully we, in the coming months, we see this project come to life. Okay, I think we have a bias crime update. Lieutenant Aguilar.
Yes, hi, good evening. So yes, we had 1 bias crime reported to us this last month, and then 3 bias incidents. The bias crime was reported on October 15th and occurred in Southeast Salem. It involved a female who lived in an apartment complex with the victim, who is a Black male. The female was suffering from a mental crisis, we believe, and took an object and threw it through the male's window. But as she was doing that, she was using racial slurs towards him. She also had a warrant for her arrest, so we ended up arresting him or her on the warrant, and she was charged with a bias crime. So that one is working its way through the court process now. So that was the 1 crime that we had. We had 3 bias incidents. The first one was actually happened back on October 5th, but the report wasn't written or submitted until after our previous meeting. So this one's a little bit delayed, this report. But it happened in Northeast Salem and involved a group of neighborhood children who were having a dispute amongst themselves, a fight amongst themselves, where different juveniles were using both racial and homophobic slurs towards other children. And then it sounds like parents got involved in the dispute. So there was no crime that was committed, and no probable cause to make an arrest, but it was documented as a bias incident because of the language that was used during the incident. The second one was on October 25th, and I failed to write down the location, but I believe it was in the Southeast Salem area. Was a male who tried to enter a private school, and as he was doing so, he was making comments towards the kids that were racial slurs. And then he also tried to grab onto a school employee. So the officers responded, and they ended up making contact with the suspect. And as they were issuing him a criminal citation, he actually ran from us. So the officers know who he is, and they're looking to give him the criminal citation. So there's no bias crime attached to the incident, but it was documented as a bias incident. And then also we'll have criminal charges for the trespass, and I think a harassment as well. And then the third incident was on November 8th. It was in Southeast Salem. A male was let go from his job. His job is to be a caretaker for a disabled adult, and the disabled adult is a Black male. After the employee was let go from his job, the disabled male's mom, so the victim's mom, started receiving phone calls from a blocked number where the voice was using racial slurs, that she believed it was most likely this employee she had terminated was using those racial slurs in describing her son. The number was blocked, but the officer was actually able to potentially figure out potentially confirm it was the former employee. And the officer is trying to attempt to contact this individual as for a possible telephonic harassment charge. But the officer also identified it as a bias incident, provided the Oregon Department of Justice bias crime phone number to the family, and then is continuing to follow up on that potential charge of telephonic harassment. So those are the three incidents I have and the one crime. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Lieutenant Aguilar. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Gretchen, complaints / concerns of discrimination.
Thank you. I received just one just yesterday during the report period. And in this case, it was a person in West Salem who reported essentially a gut or an uneasy feeling about the way they experienced a process from an agency. They explained that they believed the agency really escalated in application of rules to them in a way that didn't sit right or appear to be even perhaps accurate. And their concern was that the escalation and the way the rules were upheld might relate to the person's gender identity. Although they said nothing was articulated or said, it was just the way they experienced the situation. So I'm working on reaching out to the agency and trying to gather more information about that rule, about that protocol, and see if I can't try to dig into what might have happened. So that one's in process, and it's the only one that I've received during the report period.
Angela here, thank you. If there's no questions, I think we can move on to our task force and project updates. And we can start off with awareness. Mike.
We met this month and continued to look at our development of our communication plan. And we have, based on the communications that we did this year in 2021, we kind of looked ahead to 2022 and see which ones we could sort of repeat and what we could add to the plan to make it a little bit more robust. So we have in the plan probably about one communication a month out to our email list about things that are going on either with the HRC or out in the community and the communities we serve. One thing that came up at the meeting that I wanted to check with the folks here on, and we'll need to check with the people who weren't able to be on today, is that we realized that our own commission members are actually not all signed up to receive the emails that we're sending out to the communities. So that was a little bit of a miss on our part of getting people signed up. So we wanted to check in and maybe Gretchen, since there's not everybody's here, maybe that's something that could be done over email, but just check in and see and make sure that folks wanted to be signed up for those updates so that they would know what we were sending out as commission. That was really the bulk of what we discussed at awareness. Did I miss anything? Kathy Tricarico or David, anybody who was there?
If I may, I might add one of the tenants within the plan development was talking about outreach, particularly to people who are unhoused. And I did get input from a community member this week, really along the same lines of how are we reaching out as an HRC to people who were unsheltered in Salem. And I was able to tell them about the Awareness Task Force's conversation and ideas, and also ask them for input. There's someone who works within the field, and so ask them for ideas on how to enhance that.
Yeah, thank you, Gretchen. We had a really good discussion about it, but I don't know that we landed on the best way to reach that community. I mean, I think that's still an open question. So thanks for highlighting that.
Angela here. Mike, you cut up there at the end for me. Was that everything you had?
Yeah, that was everything from awareness. So I imagine, since not everybody's here today, that we can do an email, like an email follow-up, Gretchen, just to make sure people are okay with being added to the list. I imagine most people will want to be on the list, but yeah, we can do that over email. That was the whole report.
I'd be happy to do that. And also the group decided to not meet at their normally scheduled time, which is in November. It happens to be the fourth, well, it's always the fourth Wednesday of November. So for both this and the LGBTQIA+ intersectional task force, those meetings are being moved to different times.
And you're here. Thank you, Mike. All right, I think we can move on to Equity Ask Report. Gretchen?
Yes, thank you. Near the end of the day today, I emailed out a newer version of the tracker that we organized based on the conversation of last time, where you can kind of see the grouping according to status. It includes items through number 22, so it's not complete yet, but I wanted to get out what I had so far and invite feedback and questions. Also, by way of announcement, as you know, the city was hiring a DEI coordinator position that was limited duration funded through the end of the fiscal year, through the end of June 30th. And I understand that we have an offer accepted and the person is going to begin near the end of this month. So I would just welcome questions, and I'm looking forward to that person giving us some horsepower and capability to increase and expand our movement and our accomplishments on the work. And I'll keep at updating the document, bringing in speakers as I can locate them, as they have information to share and report to you all on, as well as I'll continue to build specificity into the right-hand column to help give you more information so you can be monitoring how we're doing on accomplishing the objectives.
Angela here. Gretchen, just so we're all clear, what's the difference between in progress and ongoing?
That's a great question. And the terms may not do a very good job of doing that difference justice. For me, in progress means that I think there's, well, gosh, it's hard to even put into words. That might not be a helpful thing. In progress to me is something where we're either still collecting information or very actively working on moving the job and the project. And so it's an active experience. Ongoing is also active. So in some ways that's an unhelpful distinction, but it might be something that where we have a routine or a protocol or a guideline or a practice already in place. And so it's being implemented in an ongoing way. Like the city currently has a mechanism for issuing proclamations, for example. That's already, there's a system, there's a process that happens regularly. That's a good example of an ongoing item. Whereas something in progress, we might be on our way to developing that ongoing approach.
Yeah, thank you, Gretchen. I was a little confused on that because those two mean the same to me. So I'm like, what's the difference between them?
It's a really good point. And in some cases, maybe something in progress had been ongoing, but it's just there's some current changes to, I don't know. So don't hesitate to let me know if you have advice on different category titles for those. That's a really good point. Those are the practically synonyms.
Okay, Angela here. Do we have any questions on the list? Gretchen, is there anything else you, go ahead.
This is Kathy. I was gonna say, I don't have any questions. I haven't really had a chance to look at it very closely yet, but I'll take a look at it. Thank you, Gretchen, for sending that out.
Yeah, Gretchen, is there anything else you want to add regarding this?
Stay tuned. I've got a lot of inquiries out and a lot of conversations happening. So I'm looking forward to loading additional detail into the document.
Angela here. Okay, thank you, Gretchen. If you hear no questions, no comments, I think we can move on to Equity Lenses / Chapter 97, Tricarico.
Hi, we don't have any updates. We're still working on scheduling a time. Although Gretchen, I wonder if we could invite that community member to maybe join us, or at least let them know that that's something that we're working on, to kind of follow up, because I hate leaving people feeling like we don't hear them or aren't doing the thing that they're asking us to do. But no updates at this.
Copy that, will do.
All right, thank you, Troy Carrico. Okay, I think we can move on to our LGBTQIA Intersectional Rights Task Force. And Mike.
Just one update, but it's pretty significant, and that's that November 20th is Trans Day of Remembrance. We have a flyer that Gretchen will be circulating to us fairly soon, if she hasn't already. We are, I think, in need of additional readers. I think the only readers right now are Tricarico, myself, and Snarfy are the only ones that are confirmed. So if anyone is interested and available to read names, it's very helpful to have multiple readers. The event will be on Zoom for the participants, but viewers will be watching on YouTube. So it will be available for streaming on YouTube, and all the information will be on the link on the flyer. And that's Saturday, November 20th, 7 to 7:30 p.m.
One quick question, Mike. I noticed that the flyer did say 7 to 8, and I almost corrected it because I know we talked in the committee about 7:30, and then I thought, well, maybe that was intentional to leave at 8. Do you have a strong feel? I mean, the flyers are being printed at this point, so I might have blown the window to.
Oh, gosh. Well, I think the main issue last year was that we were done with the program sooner than we had anticipated, and people popped on to the YouTube after it was already done. If the flyers are already done, then they're done. And I don't know that it's that, big of an issue. I think most of the people who popped on late last year probably know now to go right when it begins. So it's probably okay, but we did talk about it being 7:30 just because the event doesn't take that long, especially being virtual. When we're in person, you can almost stretch it out to an hour or 90 minutes because people are getting settled and they're talking and that kind of thing. But when you have the virtual event, you start right away. Reading the names doesn't take as long as we maybe thought it would. But I think it's probably okay. Do you have any thoughts, Tricarico? Kathy? No?
I agree with what you said, Mike.
Mike, I can read names too if you need more people to read. I wasn't sure. I thought, were there a couple of people you were gonna ask who haven't been able to do it?
Yeah, and they were unable.
Okay.
The people that I checked in with, I sent messages to all of them, and
Okay.
Nobody from last year except for Snarfy was able to repeat. So
Okay.
And I'll do opening remarks, and Tricarico is closing. And no, I have not written my opening remarks yet. I'm on it.
Angela here. Any more questions? Comments? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Mike. Okay, staff updates, Gretchen.
Sure, probably just one. There's a new document called a Community Impact Report that the city just published, and it's available on the city's webpage. And also the council is going to be meeting on Monday evening to discuss the priorities that they're working on right now and kind of heading into next year in advance of the budget process. And so that just might be of interest to the group. Other than that, though, I have no report.
All right, thank you, Gretchen. The community calendar.
And I actually did that in writing this time, so I've got nothing to add unless anyone else has anything to add to that.
The radical free market, sorry, this is Tricarico. that I mentioned in the previous meeting will be going on Saturday from 12 to 3 at River Road Park. So this is where a lot of like community members are gathering, as well as like Free Fridge Salem and other kind of community support groups. So I'm hoping to go and kind of network with some of the folks there and make sure they know about the HRC kind of unofficially. But it is a really cool event, and I would encourage anyone to go who can and would like to.
Angela here. It says, it looks like on the calendar it says from noon to 4. Is it from noon to 4 or noon to 3?
Oh, I don't know. Last time it was noon to 3, so I would not show up at 3 and be late. I would encourage you to be there before 3 just in case. Thank you for asking.
Angela here. Thank you. Does anybody else have any more events, questions, comments? All right, hearing none. Member remarks and or announcements. I think I just have next month is our last meeting for the year. It's December already. I think it's a good time to start thinking about how we want to do our yearly planning. I know in years past, we've done our normal commission meeting and then like a retreat in like 2 weeks from that first meeting. And then last year we just did a big meeting. So I know what we want to do this year. So start thinking about that. I think that's all I got for now. If anybody else has anything else to say. All right, hearing none, hope everybody stays safe and have a good night. This meeting is adjourned.
Night, everybody.